All right, welcome to Pass the Mic for Friday, September 15th, 2023, episode 86 on Zoom. Joining me, Mr. Michael Gervasi.
What's up? What's up?
How are you tonight?
I'm super. Thanks for
Uh,
asking. How are you?
I'm surprised there aren't like posters of Jared Goff behind you and Wayne Fonts and stuff. I'm surprised you're not wearing one of those blue ski masks, as a
Hey,
matter of fact, that are sold out on
how
Amazon.
are they gonna? How's Ford Field gonna work that one out this week?
I don't know. I don't know. We start every episode with feedback, and what do you know? We have a guest here, the king of feedback. I'm going to
Yeah.
call him the king of feedback. We get feedback. First of all, a true story. I used to upload the episode for 6 a.m. Well, when we did these video episodes, it must be a streaming buffering thing. They would always be late. It would never be 6. It'd be like 7. So I bumped it back to 5 a.m., which gets it closer to 6 a.m. because Max would text us, Mr. Max Bailey, when I was doing it that way, and say, hey, where's the episode? And it was buffering and getting up there. Mr. Max Bailey, welcome to the Pass the Mic podcast. Often mentioned right up there with the Pates. If we had like a slash mark competition, it'd be very close.
The Pates are, and Max, I'll let you talk here in a second. The Pates are gonna be really upset about this. I think I'm gonna hear it from Deontay and Antoine. Sean Gordon, who already, Bailey, Max Bailey, that whole thing's gonna come. There's gonna be a lot of envy on this one.
Well, that's
We've kind of had Max in our back pocket. Mr. Stoltz sort of recommended this. We're like, yeah, let's just do this now.
Yeah.
Max,
So here he is. He's going to start it off with feedback from last week.
Thanks for having me on. It's a little different being on this side because I know I'm the butt of many jokes on this show. So I finally get to be on here. My apologies to those that haven't been on that want to. But yes, I do have one feedback from last week. And it's actually relevant still because you guys were talking about college football week 1 and now week 2 was already passed. We said how there really wasn't anything big, Clemson losing, this and that. The biggest story of college football, and still the biggest story, is Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
Like how you guys didn't mention Colorado and Coach Prime and all that he's doing. Like I just thought that was a huge omission.
What are your thoughts on that?
It was fun. Like I loved Deion as a player. I was never a jersey guy, but when I was in high school, I had the Deion Sanders Atlanta jersey. I loved watching him play football and baseball. And he obviously won at Jackson State, and he's winning now, but he has really good players. I mean, he had really good players at Jackson State, right? The Hunter kid was like one of the nation's top players. His son was a 4-star quarterback, and he's really good. So he's got really good players. So It's always fun when, something new and exciting comes on the scene. So we'll see how long it lasts. It's
Mike, what are your thoughts? What do you think?
Ironic it's the Pac-12 as they're like the going away present for them.
Imploding. Now that I'm a state of Michigan man, there's really very few college teams that I root against. I mean, I just sort of like to watch it for the enjoyment. I did enjoy Alabama losing, so watching Colorado do well, I was fine with. I think this weekend is Pitt, West Virginia, if I'm correct. So that is a game where I'll have high interest in. But I like what's going on out there. I mean, not much defense. I think Oregon is going to be there. There's going to be some tough games out there for them. So we'll see what they're really all about.
The Pac-12 is playing very well. I think it's pretty cool. I do think it's a bit much at times, like, Coach Prime on the sweatshirts and all that stuff is, the kids really seem to like playing for him and all that stuff. But I inherently, I don't like when people make themselves bigger than ever. Like, when Michigan first made the national title game in 2013, the Fab Five putting themselves on everything. Like, come on, man, it was 20 plus years ago. That's kind of where I'm at on this one, but he is actually coaching and he's doing an amazing job. And I like how he's ruffling feathers. I like how he went after Saban last year, is not scared to do that. So I think it's pretty cool. Now we got a much bigger local college football story going on right now. We don't need to go down that road.
I think we've said this sort of topic before. There's 3 sides to every story. And I think this is a perfect example of where that is. There's Coach Tucker's story, there's the young lady's story, and then there's the truth somewhere in the middle there. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't know. But man, $80 million is a lot of money to lose. That's one thing I will say. I couldn't afford it.
Max, any thoughts?
No, it's so early. I guess wait and see what happens. I mean, as a state fan, it's disappointing to hear because obviously it's not the first time stuff like this has been mentioned in connection with Michigan State. But it feels like Michigan's had it too. Ohio State's like, which Big Ten team isn't involved in this? Like, at some point, when are people going to not put themselves in this situation?
Yeah.
Well said. Do you have any other feedback, Mike, besides the king of feedback?
Yeah, Mr. Tony Saavedra, he really gave us some feedback on Chat GPT. Seems to like it at work. Bill Burguy commented, Todd Steinmetz, based upon my Blue Zones thing, which Tom Pack did not like. Bill Burguy he says Todd Steinmetz is going to live forever since he had, plant-based diet. And Bill is happy to drink 2 beers a day, he says.
Family friendly beers.
I'll leave off. There's Max's comment about Dion Prime. Geo, there's concern that AI will essentially take over. So yeah, that's been around for a while, and I thought I kind of mentioned that. Another short joke. You must have taken the Mitch Albom thing. Another short joke.
I did one again.
Yes.
Yeah.
While saying you weren't, you snuck one in there.
the old sneak attack.
Yeah, so I guess that's it. Yeah.
Well, you did. I find it funny you mentioned Tom Pack. We had and this was to tie in. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We had open house last night. We saw Tom, and there's a little awkward moment there where our former executive producer Rocky Georgie, who we fired after Tom Pack's great artwork, they sort of had a come together moment.
It reminded me of George Costanza. Caught no web in my own lies.
That's Coach Tom Pack to you, by the way.
One of the things, you know what? Crystal Fowler had a really interesting story. Her son has, wanted to get, I talked about the bass bumping and all that stuff, and boy, I sound old saying that.
Did you hear this yesterday? Yes.
Yeah. So, he went to Mickey Shore.
Yeah, he's like, we're going to Best Buy, and she's like, no, we're not. He's like, what's a Mickey Shore?
Right. And Beth McLean, a teacher on our staff, told him some songs to play, so he's got the bass pumping out of his vehicle right now. So if you hear it in Gibraltar, it's probably
Blake Fowler.
Blake Fowler, yeah.
All right.
So.
All right, great feedback as always. I want to give Max a few minutes. You wanted to maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from. So I'm the dean of the high school. I think he's the dean of the middle school, right? Like if we go by seniority.
If we go by seniority, there are people that have taught at Shoemate longer than me, because I started my teaching career at Hunter Elementary School for 4 years, and then I slid over. But I was hired before. Kathy Filkins has been in the building longer than me, but not in the district longer.
Well, I still think that makes you the dean. I've officially, as the dean of the district, I am awarding you the dean of the middle school title.
All right, yes, I believe I'm third in the district now. It just means I've been there a while. I'm at the point in my career where we're starting to get some sons and daughters of previous students. That's always a fun time. But yeah, 26 years in the district, and I have 2 daughters in the district, a 7th grader and a 9th grader. My wife teaches at Carlson as well. So, we live in the district. We're just that Gibraltar family. It's been a great place to live and work for 26 years. Obviously met some terrific people. Right, it's no secret that I'm here because I'm close with both of you guys, and kind of fun when you guys first told me about this. I didn't know what it was, and here it is. Was it 2 years later? And it's still entertaining. I still listen to it every Friday on my way to work, and usually, right before I leave the house, I'm hitting you up at the feedback, or right when I get there.
Yeah, we're hearing about
almost 2 years.
Yes, because when Mike we want to do the anniversary show, right, where we have guests from all over the country.
And you know what? This reminds me, and Max, you mentioned it. So, John, the guy that commented on your English flub last week, mentioned as he's getting caught up, as he's listening to all these, he says it's really cool to hear the evolution, how much better the show is as we go on.
Oh, really?
We saw, yeah, I thought that was pretty cool to hear that.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah. I mean, it's fun. It's fun, and we've discovered things to make it do better, and and we've dropped the ball a few times. We all have games like the Pittsburgh Steelers had last weekend, where you just come out flat and get smacked in the face, right?
You're not like the Lions.
Yeah, no. All right, so with that, we're going to do our standard questions that we have all guests. So I'll go first. As Max is a frequent listener, he knows the questions well in advance. Obviously, Max, I just asked this in my leadership skills class as they are doing their introductions. One meal, home cooked or out to eat. What is the meal, and how is it prepared?
Well, I think I'm going to make spaghetti. I don't know how this came about, but I started doing this on my birthday. You know how we are now. We're old. It's harder to go out and celebrate your birthdays. We're lucky if we get a meal at home with everyone. I started making spaghetti. Usually, a couple things I might go to. So I'm gonna make spaghetti. I know my kids like it. I enjoy it. it's one of the first things I learned to make once I moved out and was living by myself and realized I had to actually cook once in a while in order to do that. So I enjoy it. I'm gonna go with spaghetti. And
Do you make your
mastacholi.
own sauce?
Meat sauce, definitely.
Okay.
Mastacholi, if we want to be technical on the pasta type.
Okay. All right. Mike?
Max, who are you? One person alive or dead? Who are you eating with?
I'm going to cheat a little bit and do two. I hope that's all right. But I had two really important influences on me as I was like breaking into the coaching and teaching business. One of them was Steve Sims, who at 46 passed away of an aortic aneurysm. You know, he really had a way of connecting with kids, a great coach, a great teacher, a great mentor to me. And Bernie Holowicki, when I was starting coaching, he was the head basketball coach at Detroit Catholic Central, but he taught at an elementary school in my district. So I always kind of knew him just from the community a little bit. And then as I was getting into coaching, I started working his camps, and he became a friend and mentor to me. I worked his camps for so many summers, and just a great guy to talk to and really learn from. And both of those guys have passed on, and it'd be great to have a meal with those two guys again.
Well done. Well done. I didn't know the second coach you mentioned, but Steve, when I first started coaching track and field, took me under his wing a little bit when I was, as I mentioned before, just a doofus 23-year-old. And this guy was a legend of the Huron League coaching and treated me like I had been coaching for years, which, as Max knows, many people in the coaching ranks of track and field, or really all sports, sometimes get a little pompous and think they're above everybody. Steve was never like that.
You would never know how many wins he had. Coach Holowicki was the same way. You would never know how many wins he had. People come up to him all over the place, and he wouldn't think anything of it.
Yep. And honestly, through Steve, he obviously was a great coach and knew what he was doing, but it was always the praise would always be on his team, not about what he did.
He was good at the playing dumb that you and I talk about. Sims really
yes.
had that down pretty well too.
I think he may be a major influence on our continuing method
that could
of
be
playing
without
dumb.
us even realizing it.
So it's we learned by that osmosis. It just sort of, I'm using too big of a word if we're playing dumb, but it sort of spread into us. And that's Max and I's old bit. We like to do the playing dumb. Excellent choices all around. All right. So Mike Gervasi decided this week he wanted to take the show and do sort of like a flip flop.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
You're with the show enough to know what comes next.
Yes. The Mike of the week. I'm sorry. You do have one for us.
I'm glad I'm a loyal listener to know that Mike of the week comes before we get into other things. So as you guys mock me often because I enjoy baseball and call me part of the baseball elite, I felt it only appropriate. I picked a baseball topic. When I was younger, one of my favorite players, not my favorite, but a guy I really did like, I played for the Philadelphia Phillies, mostly third base, hit over 500 home runs.
Oh, wow.
Couple MVPs. And ironically, he and I share a birthday. So I'm with the great Mike Schmidt as my Mike of the week. Mike Schmidt.
Excellent. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We know how tough the Baseball Hall of Fame is. So good choice. We'll get him up on the wall. We got some other baseball mics up there.
You know what? Let me go off script here for a second, and then I'll explain. You could explain what we're doing, and I'll explain why. But Max, real quick. So you mentioned Baseball Hall of Fame. Let me just put you on the spot right here.
Oh man.
Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, do they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
I guess it depends on what baseball wants, right? If on the field, sure, they obviously turned a blind eye for so much of that. You know, it seems it's like most things, right? There seems to be some hypocrisy because there's guys in there that have done some things and other guys that have not. You know, at what point do you forgive and move forward? I don't know. But if you really want to take a hard line, then keep them out. But if you're going to apply that standard to some, or shouldn't you apply it to all?
And those two guys were, I always like to point out, were assuming they weren't doing it before the steroids. I think it's
right. They were going to be Hall of Famers.
They were going to be right. They were the best at their positions.
The steroid use no doubt led to their longevity and then being able to do that for so much. I mean, both those guys played into their 40s, I believe.
Yeah,
and we're productive.
Yeah,
late ages.
No, they stayed at a high level their entire careers.
Yeah. I mean, you imagine like if Miguel Cabrera played in that era and was able to use those.
Oh yeah.
These last few years wouldn't have been like these last few years.
Right.
All right. So now, do you want to explain what we're doing, Mike?
We flipped the education. We've decided to do education overrated, underrated, and our topic is going to be sports related this week. And the reason I wanted to flip this is because the Lions won a pretty big game. And Max, you could speak on this because you were on one of the 4 or 5 text threads I was on. In fact, you might have been on 2 of the 4 or 5 text threads I was on. And you even gave some emotion that you normally don't when they won the game. I believe there was a yeah with a certain word before it that is a family friendly show. I believe that was you.
I think that was Mr. Sikora, the other member of the baseball
Well, I
league.
know he did too, but I thought you did.
I certainly agreed with it.
Okay, and I did as well, and I probably said the same. I mean, that was so in my mind, this was one of the 3 best wins this century for the Detroit Lions, a regular season game. And so what I came up with this idea in my room. What is the best? Sorry, I was talking to my daughter there. What is the best non-championship win you can remember one of your teams having in your lifetime? Just and it's one game and it's not a championship. So what is the most memorable, the best game you can think of that one of your teams has had?
So we're going there now.
Yes, we'll go there now. You can go first.
I got baseball elite guy, right? I've been to a couple playoff games that were awesome, right? The A's in Game 5, eliminated Yankees, stuff like that. But at my core, I'm really a basketball guy, and probably the most memorable game, at least in recent memory, of one of my teams winning was Michigan State 2019 Elite Eight. They beat Duke 68-67. The basketball nerd in me saw Tom Izzo call a timeout, ran a great play, and Kenny Goins, who wasn't going to be, he wasn't one of the featured players, wasn't an All Big Ten guy, stepped back and drilled a 3 very, very late in the game. They beat Duke. Duke had Zion Williamson, right? He was the next great thing. Superstars all over the place, and as we say, Duke is Duke.
Duke is Duke.
Coach Izzo doesn't have the greatest record in the world against Coach K, so for them to beat them in 2019, go to the Final Four, it was a great game the whole way. Cassius Winston, as kind of led the team that year, and then when you think back too, there was no 2020 tournament, so that really stayed with you a lot longer, right? That's one of the memories I had. I'm sure they went to Final Four, lost to Texas Tech, but the other thing to me about that game that made it cool and memorable to me, I was in my back room watching. I don't know where my wife was, but both of my kids were in the room watching. And, they were a little younger then. They were, 4 years ago or so. So they're like, 7, 11, maybe 6 and 10. They usually don't sit and watch games with me, but for the last, part of the second half, they were in the room watching with me. And when Goins hit that shot, yeah, I was really excited. And my neighbors could probably hear me yelling. My kids were too. And they had some genuine enthusiasm towards Michigan State winning that game. And the moments watching them make the 3 to come back, that's just a non-championship, right? They didn't win it that year, but we're talking about a game that I'll remember. That was it, that Elite Eight victory over Duke in 2019.
Well said, well stated. And Max and I, you mentioned we were at that, I believe it was game 4. We were both at the game, not together, when the Tigers beat the A's. And Comerica was rocking that day.
It was literally shaking. When Scherzer came out of the bullpen,
it was amazing game, and it was every once in a while I'll go to YouTube to watch when Scherzer came out. Mine goes all the way back to 2005, Game 7, Eastern Conference Finals. The Pistons went into Miami, and teams generally don't win Game 7s on the road. I watched it from the Palace Vision. That was
wow.
It was awesome, and the entire game I felt like they were going to lose. They just kept fighting and fighting, and I remember the moment I knew they were going to win. They showed Alonzo Mourning on the big screen, and I feel like the Pistons at that point were probably up 4 with like 10 seconds left, and I think Billups got fouled. 86-82 was the score at that point. I remember that. They showed Mourning, and I don't know why. This is one I don't understand. I really did not like Alonzo Mourning, and I cannot understand why to this day. But they showed him, and I think the entire Palace crowd felt it too. We all kind of collectively felt it, and there was electricity. And then they show the Pistons players, and Larry Brown is hugging guys, and Richard Hamilton's like, this is what we do. This is what we do. And just they were such a resilient team. They really should have won the finals that year. I think that Miami series wore them out, and they weren't ready to start the next series. They ended up losing in 7, but that game was such a power. It was just so memorable. So that's my game.
So Palace Vision, you didn't go to Ford Field for I don't know, was it called Lions Vision the other night?
I didn't even know they had it. I thought
they did that. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mike, listen, jump aboard, man.
I'm still tapping on the brakes. It's early.
Let's wait and see what happens this week against the team they now
Oh,
should beat.
God, they just
Yes,
beat the Super
exactly.
Bowl champions on the road, and we can play this game.
All right, then let's have the parade. Then let's
No,
crown
I'm
him.
not saying have
Let's
the
let's call
parade.
out Denny Green.
No, but the Lions had some guys that were injured too. Their number one cornerback was out. Their number two receiver.
I didn't mention anything about injuries. It's a big
I'm
win.
just saying, moving forward now, okay, they had this great win. They've had some good wins in the past, and they always followed up with a dud. So now they're at home. Barry Sanders statue. That place is going to be rocking and crazy. They should beat Seattle. They absolutely.
But
so beat Seattle, and then we can move on.
At some point, we don't have to qualify things. This is
no. I'm not qualifying anything. I'm just saying they have to win Sunday now to legitimize that, to show that they are parade worthy.
All right, Mike. Yeah. Let's hear what you have.
All right. So I was going back and forth through my notes, and there's a couple that, but to me, I think if I think of all the things you guys discussed and a combination of expectations going into the game and that sort of thing. So I'm going back to 2005 as well. AFC divisional round. The Steelers were at the Colts. Peyton Manning hasn't won a Super Bowl at this time. They got smoked earlier and embarrassed on Monday Night Football earlier that season in Indianapolis. It was like one of those games where it was like 17-0, like 3 minutes in or 4 minutes in. So after they upset the Bengals the week before and blew out Carson Palmer's knee, Kimo von Oelhoffen, I had very low expectations. I'm like, okay, just don't get embarrassed. The famous don't get embarrassed there. And it was like a total 180 of the Monday night game. The Steelers came out guns a-blazing. Roethlisberger's throwing the ball around. They're up big. And this is the famous Joey Porter after Troy Polamalu clearly picked off a ball and they replayed it and somehow took it away from him. And this is the famous bet. I mean, so many things. I went from thinking the game was over, the Steelers were going to win, to thinking the game was over, the Colts were going to win, to this missed field goal by Van de Jerk, right? That was the famous jerk kicker. There's so many things to that game. It was really the best game of the AFC, of the whole playoffs that year, because going into Denver, I think Plummer was the quarterback, and I wasn't worried about Denver. They killed them, and then we all talked about this before. That Seattle Super Bowl, people say that the Steelers didn't play great, but they won. But that Colts game was a heck of a football game, and they were definitely probably, if the Steelers weren't the best team that year, and they may not have been. Sometimes you say the best team doesn't win. Then the Colts were. That Colts team was very good, and
they were on another level that year.
And it was just one of those things where all of a sudden, we've seen this in all kinds of sports. The other team comes out, punches you in the nose to start, and it's hard to come back from that, no matter how good you are. And the Colts nearly did, but that one sticks out. And then just as a side note, so I can prove that I'm a little bit of a baseball guy, and because the Pirates are very similar to the Lions, right? Like the wild card game against the Reds a couple years back, and it's getting to be a lot of years back, but where Cueto's pitching, they get him all worked up. He drops the ball, and then the next pitch is a home. I mean, it's the only time in PNC's history that it was like crazy. It was just a great game to watch on TV.
Like their most famous playoff game, they lost. Yeah. Right? Isn't that the game people remember the Pirates for?
Yeah, we talked about that game on here.
So yes. Unfortunately, yes. Now, if you go back into the, you got Mazeroski hitting we're not, they're even older. There's some classic ones, but that's it. But definitely yes, that 05 divisional game against Colts, and I will be going back to the scene of the crime this December.
Nice.
Hopefully the Steelers are playing a little better by then in December when I go out there to see them. So, but I like this topic. Great topic. We were talking at my desk, and I was throwing around different games, and I had to make sure it was a non-championship game. I don't want to get all the Wings fans angry and drop the Penguins winning Game 7 at Joe Louis, but that doesn't count. That's a championship game.
Speaking of the Red Wings, right? They had the game in Colorado where they just like lit them up Game 7. We were at the Track State Finals in that game.
Yep, embarrassed.
Sims was there.
Yep. I think if you go for Wings, and I'm not a Wings fan, but I think most Wing fans will probably say that famous game where Yzerman beat St. Louis in overtime with the long slap. I think that's pretty. I mean, that's just a crazy game, and the way that ended. To me, I'm not a Wings fan, and I'm sure Wings fans may say no because they didn't win the. I don't know if they went on to win the cup that year.
They got
knocked out. But that game, that was a huge way to win a game.
Oh, it's incredible. That's an incredible moment in Detroit sports history. The sound of the little
the thing. Yeah,
just such a cool moment. Yeah.
All right. Well, great topic, Mike. Great topic. I think we like I said, we changed things up a little bit, keeping it fresh. So that brings us to overrated, underrated, which is going to be education related.
Yeah.
We're fresh off of our open house. Now, was Shoemate's open house before school started, Max? Like the
Shoemate's open
elementaries?
house was the first day of school.
Okay.
The elementaries were before school started.
Before started. Okay, so we're going to do overrated, underrated open house / parent teacher conferences because there's, if you don't add it up a little bit, there's not a lot there to talk about. So, we've done these as employees. I've gone to them as a parent. I used to go to the elementary ones, especially the elementary ones as a parent. I know, like I talked to Max, sometimes I would put this on my wife to do more because, like, especially at I work with all these people. My wife can be the one to go sort of meet and talk to them. So, Max, what do you got for overrated conferences / open house?
All right, especially I guess I'm leaning more towards the conference part, but the overrated is just the notion that you need them to talk about your kid. Right here we are in 2023. Grades are not a mystery, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has 24-hour access to all of their kids' grade. Gibraltar, we have this Parent Connect system. But it's a two-way street also, right? I shouldn't be waiting. Oh, I hope this parent shows up. I really need to talk to them. Like, I can pick up a phone, I can send an email. We have Parent Square, it works great, right? And I can reach out to parents and says, hey, your kid was terrific. Your kid really did this, or I'm really pleased with the progress they're making. If the kids are struggling with something, or if an issue arises, I can go to my desk right away, sit at the computer, and send a text message to their phone. So we have this all the time. Like, there's no mysteries involved. We have access. Parents have access to me almost 24 hours a day. I have the same access to them, whenever I need it. So we can always be in contact. Like, the notion that I can only talk to a parent at parent teacher conferences on, well, this year they're like, I don't know, November the 10th or whenever they are. That's just so out of date, right? We're at a different era now, a different time. We can communicate constantly.
I think you make a good point. It's twofold. Like you said, the grades are always there, and the communicational tools are much more prevalent than when we first started. It used to be you'd only talk to these parents at conferences, at open house if they showed up,
right?
And they didn't know what the grade was. We just fill in the bubble at the end of the semester, and it was sort of like, here it is. So it's not only they can see so a lot of parents' questions are going to be answered by just looking at the grades. They don't even need to talk to you.
Right.
And then even if they do, they don't need to come to a single night. They could send you an email, send you communication like you did through the.
We have, because of COVID, we started COVID year. We did the Zoom conferences, and then everyone said, "Oh my goodness, that was so much better." So the parents didn't have to take off work to come stand in line and talk to me for 5 minutes, right? And now we just set it up. They do them. We still use the Zoom, which I think is better. So at least we can check in that way. But think about the old way when you had to take a day off work to come talk to all your kids' teachers.
Yep. And pencil in it. Yep, exactly. Mike, what do you got?
So mine is more focused on conferences because open house is a little bit different. Parents and kids, especially kids entering a new school, should be at open house to figure out where things are and all that stuff. But so I'm going to focus more on conferences. When a parent brings their kid to conferences and you're having this conference and there's the three of you there, it is so awkward. And a lot of times the parents will begin to get mad at the kid right in front of you and sometimes berate the kid right in front of you. And you're just sitting there like trying
stating
to look
facts.
Right. And like, and then sometimes the teacher will ask you a follow-up question and then you have to answer it when this kid is about to get berated even more. It's such a horrible feeling. So I guess almost a PSA: parents, don't bring your kids to the conferences. It's just
or have them sit in on the Zoom.
Zoom, right? So yeah, that's my overrated.
Mine, and again, this is going to tie into a little bit what Max said. I almost think the second round is not even needed. Now I get it in the high school, there might be some schedule changes. I look at my son's schedule, but I think in the middle school, other than electives, right, things pretty standard.
You have the same teacher for all your 4 classes the whole entire year. But that's why we only have one conference. I always thought it was a little strange that the high school has 2, but the middle school only has 1.
Yes, we have a second round for some reason, and there are some changes. I know on Nate's schedule this year, he has Dawn Wynn right now for chemistry, and then because people's schedules change and stuff, so he has McLean in semester 2. But for the most part, he has the same math teacher all year. He's the same English. He has the same AP US history teacher. So it's sort of like, and like I said, with all the other things that Max talked about that are there, I really don't think there needs to be and Mike, you can put but like our second round is so under attended. It is. Right. It's like you got to beg people.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's sort of like they get it. They've met you once. and you got to like I don't know, like offer gift cards or something for people to join a Zoom, because nobody, like
Nobody
you said,
would.
between the fact of everyone knowing what's going on, between the fact that good teachers are communicating anyway if kids are having trouble, that nobody wants to sit there and make an appointment for 10-15 minutes.
Right.
So second round of
Oh,
conferences, not needed.
I was very curious what the librarian was going to offer on parent teacher conferences.
I do have, I
Here's a
do
class,
have,
Max.
well, first of all, I have leadership skills this semester, but I do have library parents that signed up in the past. I had people yesterday, I signed off a couple open house slips too. So
I
the
can see
librarian,
open house kind of show up the library, see what it's like, because obviously
well,
the media center is way different now than it was when when we were younger.
yeah,
Although parents now are younger than we are. It's something that we're gonna have to get used
yes,
to.
that's definitely true. All right. Underrated, Max. What do you have
All right.
underrated?
Underrated, like parents and teachers, right? We're partners in this. We're partners in education. But the underrated part is we're also partners in the community. So this is a chance for you to just kind of meet that person, because you're going to see them over and over. And like right now, I teach 5 7th grade classes, and I have a 7th grade daughter. So I see these parents, right? Kroger, trick or treating at the youth sports stuff and all of that.
Joe's
So
prime time.
so we're partners in a community. We're doing a lot of the same things together. We're working together. My wife is a band booster now. She's had all these band things, not as a teacher, but as a parent of a kid in a band. So that's the underrated part to me about this, is getting to just meet those other parents that you're going to be working with, in my older daughter's case, the next 4 years, my younger daughter's case, for the next 6 years. So we can start to know them and deal with them and build relationships as community members, not necessarily as parents and teachers. And I think that's one of the unique things about our district. We have so many parents that really are community members, right? So many of us, all three of us, have kids that come with us, right? Mike didn't used to live here. He moved his kids in. The people on two sides of me, they both lived at one point out of the district and sent their kids. So that's a really unique thing, that the parents, the teachers are also parents. We're also community members. So to me, that's the underrated part, is getting to, do those other things. And the open house and the conferences, you get to meet these people.
That's another great point. I think when you, as you were talking, that the name that just popped into my head, who my wife and I are very blessed to know, and we've talked, is Coach Tony Saavedra and his
Yes.
wife Patricia, because of the age of our boys. And Nate and his in Austin have played basketball and baseball and grew up through the years. They run cross country together now. And you want to talk about heavily involved community parents? They're just great people to have along your side. So they're, in the past it would have been, Max, just somebody that I coached,
Right.
but because Nate was in the age with the son, it's not just somebody I coach now. They're friends, and they're people that make every program that we're involved with better. Basketball, cross country, the school in general.
Their
So big
youngest son
shout
is
out.
on the cross country team, which I'm coaching right now. I know that's going to be probably my last season with the Savages, and I go way back with their oldest kid.
Mm-hmm.
Funny story about being as community members. Last year, right? We're trick or treating, and this girl walks by my house. She's getting ready to walk up, and she's with her dad, and I don't really know her. But I hear the dad say, "Oh, that's the guy from the basketball league," and the girl turns around and said, "He's also my teacher." And he was like, "Oh." And then my younger daughter, Erin, it's her grade, right? She's now friends with the girl and just met her around the corner. But now we have these community things, and that's, if we're not at the schools, we're not at the open house, we don't get to meet these people. So
Yep. No, great tip. Great suggestion. Mike, what do you got?
So as I was watching last night, so we had an open house last night, but we do it a different way at Carlson. And I think it's really, really cool. We're outside and we kind of just set up by table, by department. And it just struck me, everybody's having a good time. And so kind of jumping off what Max said, we think in Gibraltar, and rightfully so, the homecoming game is amazing. Mike, you put on an amazing show, no doubt, even though you're not around in the second half to see it, but it's a lot of fun.
I think I will be this year with the Jaguars in town.
But this is like a community hub type thing that I think people don't really think of it that way. But man, if you looked out yesterday and just looked at people, everyone's having a good time, smiles on everybody's faces. You get all these different peoples, all different backgrounds and persuasions and all that stuff. And it really truly is a community hub that we have created here. And I don't think people think of it that way very often. I think it's, to a lot of people, it's more of an educational opportunity, but it's a lot more than that. So I'm going the underrated, just the community atmosphere, kind of jumping off what Max said and just applying it to what we did yesterday.
All right. Well, I'm just going to attach it. My note said our style of open house yesterday. Max mentioned people see in the library. People don't see the library because we set it almost like up in the street fair sort of. I equate it to a street fair.
Yeah,
We have
yeah,
food trucks out there.
right.
Each department has a table with games. We're dressed casually. You know, it used to be
The
at open house.
band, we had
I
the
used to wear
band
shirt and
playing
tie. Yeah, the
yesterday.
Maestro had the marching band play. Community groups were there. Kiwanis was there. I know, like the athletic boosters were there. Just it's not, and there's contests and stuff, so that if you visit all your teachers, there's scholarships we give away. I donate 2 homecoming tickets every open house so that 2 kids will win a homecoming ticket, $25 value. But it's a great way to do it. The weather was perfect. We're thankful for that, because if the weather's not, you know, if the weather doesn't work out, you're sort of out of luck, because
we lucked out though. We did.
but we've been lucky, knock on wood, every year that we've done this, and it's a great method. Now, again, does 1,100 families, or we don't have, I guess we have 1,100 kids, but do 900 families come? No, but you know what? It's better than, I remember the old days, Mike. You'd go in the building, you'd get a schedule, they would ring the bells actually, and you would go like from hour to hour. You'd have all these parents aimlessly wandering around. Whereas this is, it's just a much more
casual.
I think it's less stress for us as a staff,
yes,
and it's less stress for the community members. I think it's a lot easier.
I think back to the old way we did it too. You're right, man. They'd go bell to bell, and then you'd have to explain, figure something out to fill this time, and parents would walk in, so you have to figure out, well, what do they need to hear that I already explained to them? It was just, this is wonderful.
And the poor parents that have more than one kid.
Yes, you couldn't even do it.
Parents are trying to do the right things and emphasize education and show everyone that they care, show their kids that they're serious about their education. Well, now if they get 2 kids, how are they supposed to be both in this little 10-minute class?
Right.
And that's something great that Trish Boucher does, and Matt Patricia Kelly Warren does. Putting on, I knew you'd get a good kick out of that. And I think Dr. Rice had some involvement in that back in the day. I don't know. I don't want to short anybody on the creation of that event. So great event, great topic. I like how we did the flip flop on it. All right, it is hot mic time. Max, I think you have one, right? Like, yeah, you were.
I do have one. I
Okay.
want to go back a couple weeks to that awful storm that we had, right? And everybody was so upset, and everyone's out power. People were blasting DTE, but I'm thinking, like, DTE deserves some praise in this whole thing. Like, think about that storm that we had. We had tornadoes, plural, right? One of them hit less than a half mile from my house. I know, very close to you guys too. We had, but tornadoes, plural. This is hopefully a once in a lifetime thing. Right? 500,000 people without power. Like, literally, right by my house, there were utility poles laying on the ground. Of course, we can't have power then. Again, this weather was so severe. I don't know what people expect. And here it is, less than 72 hours later, almost 1 million people without power. They had it restored. To me, that's pretty amazing. I know I was one of the later ones to get it back, but still, less than 2 days. And thank goodness my neighbor Ross loaned me a generator, because he has 3. That's just kind of who he is. So he loaned me one of his. I've since bought my own to be ready in case this happens again. But I just thought that was amazing that DTE could restore almost 1 million people's power in less than 72 hours, especially with that damage. Like I said, you guys saw Allen Road, right? You saw those utility poles. Awful. So thank you, DTE, right? There's other times when I get annoyed if mine goes out for simply no reason, but in a situation like that, with all of that going on, and I just thought that was pretty amazing.
You know, I agree with you too. And I think sometimes we sort of downplayed what the storm acts, because, you know, you hear tornado and nobody's houses were really, you know, you think of tornadoes you see out in the Midwest where there's like actually leveled houses. We were fortunate that we didn't have any of that here. We had some roof damage and tree damage. And this really hit home for me this week, because we were trying to figure out, we were down 1 float trailer. Because every grade had picked theirs up by August 21st, and the seniors are trying to get theirs. I was losing my mind, yelling at the student council kids, saying, who took 2 trailers? I'm yelling. I finally called the bus garage, talked to Miss Sherry Frazier, a great employee we have in the district. And I'm like going on and on about, no one's going to steal these trailers, Sherry. It has to be somewhere. And she goes like, well, Mike, did you ever consider the tornado? The bus garage area got hit really hard. It was right up there by Ellen. Lost its roof, lost the radio antenna. Sure enough, that trailer is back in the wetlands. It got picked up, and I spent this whole week yelling at student council kids. But again, I agree. I'm usually very patient with DTE, and around us, Mike, I don't remember it kicked on that Saturday night.
Yeah,
it would have been on and working that night, but
yeah,
because it overbuilt because of
Right.
they didn't take into account, and it blew a transform. It was a safety feature, and that's why it took like another 12 hours, because it really was like another 12 hours. So in reality, we almost would have had it Saturday night.
Yeah, 48
which would
hours.
have, yeah, which is amazing. I'm usually very patient, and I get it. Nobody likes to have any of that stuff. And again, we were blessed and lucky that it could have been much worse, I guess is the way I can put it too.
We have had two crazy storms. If you think about this year, the ice storm in March, I believe
Yeah.
it was March.
And we weren't off that long at all. There were people like in like northern. We got it back pretty quick for that one, I thought.
I don't think I lost it during the ice storm. It helps though that my lines are buried. They're in the ground where we are.
Yeah, so are ours, but we have a big transformer station here, and I think that's the problem. All right, my hot mic. Do you mind if I go, Mike, or do you want to go first?
I'll go first. We'll
All right.
No, you know what? We're going off script. Mike, we're doing everything different.
We're
today.
rotated?
Flipping
Okay.
everything today.
Flipping
We're flipping
everything.
today.
So breaking news today, I saw as I got home from practice, I read the news in the morning, and I'll read it again in the afternoon through my various sites. Did you see which U.S. senator has announced that he's not rerunning for office at a reasonably age of retirement? Senator Mitt Romney has announced that he is
Oh,
not.
I did. I saw the headline. Yes.
Right about the age that somebody probably
Yeah,
should retire. Good for him.
Yeah.
So I sat there and I started thinking, I'm like, again, we've had things in the past month or so with Senator Feinstein and then Mitch McConnell, the memes, of course, with both of them, hanging on. And of course, presidential candidates. And I'm sitting here and I've accepted that more than likely there will not be a Generation X president in the next election. So still not one at all. Obama is a young baby boomer. I looked it up just to make sure that I was right about this. Obama is not a Gen Xer. So we're shut out in 2024. So will there be a Gen X president? I mean, I'm guessing we are. I just have this feeling. I mean, obviously things can change. Will 2028 be the first Gen X president? Our generation. And we're going to be
skip.
Or do we?
Yeah.
Like, again, it's sort of like we are. We're like this. And again, it's amazing to me that because of the ages of, and I guess part of me thought too, like Obama, I thought Obama was part of our generation and he wasn't. So I was sort of misled by that. I didn't realize that he was a young boomer, not an old Generation Xer. But you're right. I mean, we got to have somebody, right? One
would think. This is one thing I find bipartisan agreement amongst my friends. Like, man, some of these guys, what are they holding on for? It makes zero sense. If I could retire now,
I'm 46. I'm 48. I'd retire tomorrow if I financially could.
Never.
I definitely wouldn't want to do a job where I'm traveling all over the country, giving speeches and getting blasted every night on the news. I definitely wouldn't. Not at 40.
Of the people are not going to like you.
Think of the stress that you deal with in your job as a librarian. Imagine the stress the president of the United States would be under.
Right. It's insane.
I mean, I hope to make it to 80. I'm not even trying to joke around. I hope that I can say that at 80, I'm celebrating my 80th birthday. Not that I'm still working. And I don't get it. This isn't blue or red. Good for Mitt Romney. You did it right. You know what? You ran. He also gets a lot of crap there from in the state he's in. Here's a guy that in one of the safest red states in the country, and he can't even win out there. Like they blast him. Like I don't know what. Like if you can't be making people happy out there, I don't know where you're never going to make anybody happy. So that's my hot mic take. Biden's collecting Social Security, right? Like all these guys, or do they have to not collect it? I don't know.
I don't know how that works if you're in politics. That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know what to ask. I'm sure somebody will tell us and let us know. All right, Mike, since we did the flip flop, what's your hot mic take?
So going off age, just a different direction, totally. This just came to me, and I was thinking, I wonder what the listener could offer on this. I used to be able to ride virtually any roller coaster. And I was talking to Rob Raymond, our colleague, the other day, and the thought of like amusement parks in general now are just, I think of spinny rides. Oh man, I might throw up. I think of I used to go on the Magnum. I think of the Magnum, like, whoa, that's too high. I can't do that. Like, what has changed in your, obviously you physically.
How about the merry-go-round? Can you ride the merry-go-round?
I probably could, but again, that's a spinny ride. So I'm just curious, like, as you get older, what this is psychological, right? And obviously your body breaks down when you try to do sports and stuff like that. that's clear to me. I can't do a lot of things, but now in my mid 40s, I can't really do too much in amusement parks anymore, and that wasn't the case before. So I'm wondering, for the listener, is there anything that has changed in your life that you could do before, but not, with obviously not physically, but that you could do before, but you can't do anymore? I'm just curious. Like I'd be curious if I'm an exception on this, or am I the rule? Because like I said, I cannot do a lot of the things at amusement parks I used to be able to do.
I just haven't gone. I mean, the last time I did amusement parks, we did Disney, and the kids were young, and I rode the stuff and didn't really have an issue. But I haven't been to Cedar Point in ages. And I would ride the stuff, and I wouldn't get sick, but it's just not something that interests me. I always joke around, if Cedar Point sold a food only admission, I would buy that. Like you had to wear a wristband, and they wouldn't let you on any rides. But I'd go get the cheese fries and other stuff like that. And
Oh man, you're gonna get hammered on this one.
So that's my thought on that. So, Max, are you a ride person at all?
It's
I mean,
funny,
your
I
kids
had
are
not
still
been in
younger.
probably 20 years, and then last summer, my kids had never been. We're like, all right, you guys are going. We're taking you to Cedar Point. But then my younger daughter, Erin, she didn't want to ride those things. So my older daughter, Shannon, she wanted to ride literally everything. Okay. So then we really couldn't split that up. So like I did the Iron Dragon. We made her ride the Gemini. Oh man, that was she has since been back
making
on
kids
it,
ride stuff.
she went this past summer, then she went with a couple friends, and Shannon went with her basketball team. But it's like I didn't have a problem. I do notice I get dizzier now faster than I used to, but I used to always ride the spinny rides. Anything that I went on at Cedar Point, it was fine. So like I said, but I didn't do some of the real crazy ones, like the big ones that they're known for. But like I said, I did do the corkscrew, so I went upside down, and that's so old now. It really moves you around. Gemini same way.
Oh yeah.
We did the blue streak with
the
with
blue.
Aaron
That's what I was
and
going to
Shannon.
ask.
Oh, Aaron, I don't blame her for hating that, because compared to the new rides, it's such a rough ride.
It beats
Oh,
you
yeah.
up.
But I was fine doing that. So I guess I probably could still do most of those, but I do get dizzy a lot quicker than I used to. But the rides didn't seem to bother me.
Getting old sucks. I wonder if Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden can handle any of those.
I bet you Joe Biden could. You see those videos of him running down the steps?
Well, maybe that should be the test.
I noticed
for
though, it's the
candidates.
same staircase he's always running down. So okay.
Maybe it should be the test for candidates, if they can handle the mean streak.
Yeah.
Or
maybe they got to run to the top of the Washington Monument. So see if they can handle all those steps.
I don't know how many people can handle any of that. So, all right. So we're going to wrap up this week's episode. I'm not even going to talk college games. I mean, Michigan State has a pretty big college game, right? They're playing Washington, and they got a lot going on. But let's just stick with our pro stuff. Lions and the Sea Chickens. Mike, straight up, who do you got? You were right on the.
Where do you think I'm going with it? We're winning this game, man. This is
double digits.
This is going to be a 2-touchdown win.
Oh, 14 points. All right, excellent. Max?
If they are these new Lions, it will be that way. So we'll see.
Oh, you're saying double digits too.
I'm saying it should be. Like,
okay.
I mean, the line, I saw the line is like, it's one of the bigger spreads, but it's less than a touchdown. Seattle, I just saw, is losing both of their starting tackles. It's like they have they lost to the Rams, who were supposed to be awful last week. Like, based on last week, these Lions should win by, more than touchdown, certainly. And then you could say that, okay, it's changed. But if they have that, old up down, as Wojo likes to say, then we'll see. But I'm hopeful. I'm more hopeful that this year's team can win this game that they would have lost in the past.
Mike, do you mind if I talk about how the 2 tackles getting hurt is going to impact my fantasy team?
No, nobody wants to hear that. But speaking of Wojo, Max and I are going to see Wojo tonight. Tomorrow night? Are you in on that? He'll be at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Woodhaven.
No, I have stuff going on tomorrow.
Oh, well, then we're going to try to round people up. Nate's working. I asked him for Nate already told me today, he's like, hey, Dad, maybe like when they walk in, I should just act like I don't know who they are and tell them, sorry, there's like a 40-minute wait. And I tried to explain to them, there's probably going to be like a table set up with like radio gear. There's not going to be just these 2 guys walking in asking for a table and a gin and tonic. All right.
So by the time this airs, right, we will have seen Wojo and Rieger.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Rieger he catches a lot of hate from this, but he plays it very well.
He's great. He's great at what he does.
Self-deprecating humor.
even before I became a state of Michigan man, I loved he handled that perfectly. The way he'd get state fans all worked up.
Underrated Jeff Rieger.
Sure.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think it was the State Central game. He sent a tweet out ridiculing Michigan State, and from that moment on, State put the gas to the floor and beat. And he's like, of course.
Yeah.
And unlike other people that would have just ignored it or maybe even deleted the tweet or the X or whatever it's called now, he actually retweeted his own tweet and said, ever since I tweeted this, it's whatever to nothing State.
So Wojo has passed that along to him. Wojo has the power with the no hitters, and now Rieger has it with the
exactly. I think the Lions are going to win. I don't, the NFL is a tough sport. Winning by more than double. I mean, like what the 49ers did to the Steelers. I mean, that's tough to do. I mean, what Dallas did to the Giants. I mean, it's a tough thing to do, but that was a lot of those for week one. Usually most games are within 10 points. And week one, we saw quite a few that ended up not being that way. I mean, the Browns embarrassed the Bengals. Maybe that's like a week one thing where it's just, teams are a little rusty. I think the Lions will win. I don't see the Steelers going 0-2, even though the Browns look pretty good. I think that if they don't, they're in big trouble. Like I said, Mike Tomlin may be in East Lansing before the end of the season. We don't even know.
Sign him up. Well, gladly.
So, Max, you were a great guest. You did a great job. People we talk about. We're very proud of how we just sort of hit record and go. And that's what we did tonight. You did a great job, a great guest. I always look forward to those early texts.
Yeah.
Or get nervous
this week if I will offer feedback this week or not.
Yeah. I get nervous when I get the text of, did you guys do one? And we did do one. So I immediately go look for it. And I'm like, okay, wait, it's just sometimes, because just for people not in the industry, like the Rocky Georgies
like
of the world.
YouTube.
Yeah. When you
industry staples.
The uploading of Spotify runs the base uploading of all these. Spotify, a company owned by Spotify, who then kicks it out to all the other companies. Okay. So it's always immediately up on Spotify. There's something funky with the other sites. There's a little more of a delay. So if you ever want it as early and fresh as possible, it's best to go with the Spotify, but not that, not that we're the Joe Rogan experience or anything, but Mike, are you all right?
You got a roll here. It's funny. I'm the one that takes the heat for all this stuff. You make more jokes than I do.
Well, I'm just trying to explain the inner workings of the podcast. So great episode. We will see you back next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah,